Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, and this is the podcast where we amplify the voices of women, especially women of color, in the consulting industry. And in order for us to be at our highest peak of performance and impact, then we have to have a strong mind, and we need a mindset that will allow us to reach new levels. So that's why we're exploring the Mind Your Mind series this month on the podcast in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. And it has been a great one thus far. We've been talking about a lot of things, everything from burnout to perfectionism, and now we're going to dive a little bit deeper down the path and discuss confidence and how we can actually unleash our confidence so that we can show up as our best, most powerful selves. And so this episode is all about addressing the struggle that we often experience with building and maintaining confidence as women in this very hyper-masculine and competitive industry, and especially as a woman of color, as we will talk about how that alone can add this additional layer of added stress and other dynamics that come into play. It's my hope that this episode will be helpful and that it will help you to unleash the confidence within, because I know if you ventured into this field, if you are a consultant, especially an entrepreneurial consultant in this space, I know that you are amazing, and I know that you're talented. I know that you're brilliant, and we want everyone to know that too. There's a misconception that we don't exist, that somehow our ability to excel at the highest level of our industry is limited, that overcoming barriers as a woman of color would be insurmountable. But what would happen if we decided to venture out on our own despite everything we're up against? I'll tell you. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, a healthcare consultant, consulting coach, high performance fanatic, wife, and proud girl mom. I help transform female professionals into thriving solo consultants. And just like you, I'm wearing all the hats and doing all the things. So this podcast is to empower the busy female professionals to move past fear to start and grow a successful consulting business, despite the obstacles you may encounter. We'll dive deep into consulting practice, business strategy, mindset, and more. So grab your cup of coffee or tea if that's your thing, and let's get started. I think I would venture to go as far as to say that confidence may be a requirement in the consulting space. I think that often this is something that we don't talk about as much because so many people tend to be overly confident, sometimes inappropriately so. But I think that this is key for us to be able to embrace and understand, because confidence truly is going to help you grow and build a successful consulting business, mainly because your confidence in what you're able to offer is going to translate into the confidence that others have regarding your ability. So confidence truly is something that plays a crucial role in business growth and business development. And even if you're just thinking about your career, it plays a huge role even in career advancement. And the reality is that although many of us seem to be very, very confident from the outside looking in, there are moments where that confidence seems to lack, where we feel a sense of discomfort being called an expert, being considered an expert, being a leader in our field, because then the spotlight is on you and everybody's looking to you for the answer, and you're afraid of making mistakes. You don't know whether or not what you're offering is good enough. And all of those things can cause you to feel this sense and lack of confidence. And when that occurs, I want you to first know that that is normal. That is normal. It's natural to feel those things from time to time. But what is more concerning and can be more problematic is when you begin to think that you're not good enough and somehow you don't have the confidence that you once had when you may have been in another environment, possibly in your 9 to 5 career, when you move into this entrepreneurial space. What I've seen over time is that many people are extremely confident in their career because they're able to rely on their degrees, their certifications, their other acknowledgments, and other awards and advancements to support them and create a more tangible representation of their expertise and what they're able to do and their capabilities and what they bring to the table. But when you get into the entrepreneurial space, all of those things, it's not that they go away, but they are just not as visible to the average person that is considering working with you. Whether it is a consumer or another business in the B2B space, those are things that are typically not part of that conversation when you're getting into sales and to pitching. So we don't have that support that we typically would have that helps us to bring our confident selves to the table. That means that there has to be a way for us to rely on something internal that helps us to show up still more confidently so that we can win the business that we need. And the thing is that there have been many things over time for all of us that have begun to erode away at that internal feeling of confidence. That knowingness that we previously had that we can do anything that we put our minds to, somewhere along the line, you experience a challenge or an experience or some other type of interaction with a person that led you to believe that, no, no, ma'am, you can't do that. And that is problematic because it breaks down the confidence that we need in order to grow. So what I want to talk about for the beginning of this episode is really just exploring some of the root causes behind why we end up in this situation. Why do we begin to experience this lack of confidence, especially when we may have been individuals that have been ambitious and strong-willed and determined all along throughout our path, throughout our journey. But we get to this point where somehow we can't seem to muster up the confidence that we know we've shown time and time again. And I want to tell you that, like I said, one, that it's normal, but then two, that it's not because of you. Not always. So there are a number of reasons why this can become a problem. And until we identify these root causes, then it's more problematic for us to figure out how to change it. We don't know what to shift, what to adapt, what to adjust, unless we know what is the cause. One of the things that I think we don't acknowledge enough is the impact of societal stereotypes and biases and what those things have on us as experts in our industry and leaders in our field. Overall, women, especially women of color, are faced with a lot of these stereotypes. There's so many stereotypes and biases that can undermine our self-confidence. And if we're not careful, we can begin to internalize these beliefs and stereotypes, and it can lead us to doubt ourselves and to have hesitancy around our ability to perform. There was an article published in Essence magazine that revealed that many of the stereotypes that are perpetuated by media and society at large actually have been shown to shape our perception of ourselves and influence our level of confidence. When we are looking at many of the stereotypes that may model consulting as being ran by a cisgender white male who is strong, powerful in their black or blue navy suit, that's the image that we begin to attach to those who succeed in the consulting space. So when we show up, if you're like me with your natural and curly hair, or if you have your strawberry blonde curls, whatever it may be, if you're showing up as a woman, first of all, in that space, but then you're showing up as a woman of color on top of that in that space, you are in stark contrast to what you have been told, at least through media and through these other stereotypes, as to who is successful in this industry, who is the one that runs and leads things in this space. When we are fed that day in and day out, it leads us to believe that that's what we have to become in order to be successful. And the thing is, the reason why this is so dangerous is because when we begin to paint this picture of success in consulting for ourselves and it doesn't look anything like us, then we're creating a gap between ourselves and who we see as being successful, who we see as being deserving, who we see as being, quote unquote, the true expert. And that gap can widen or narrow depending upon how we approach our internal dialogue when it comes to who deserves to be or should be or can be successful in this space. One of the first things that we have to do is begin to break down some of these stereotypes, some of the stereotypes that will tell us that you can't be a powerful woman and still be empathetic and still be caring and still be nurturing. There are so many ways that we've been told that we need to show up, how we need to conform. I even think about for myself, how I've always felt when I'm going into a space where I felt a little unsure, uncertain, because I certainly have battled through these periods of lack of confidence. And the one thing I would lean on is that if I'm going into a space where there is a conference room and I know it's predominantly male, that I tend to prepare myself, quote unquote, for battle by putting on my pantsuit, right? It's going to be my black or my blue pantsuit because that's what I see them wear. And for whatever reason, well, I know the reason, but because I have been ingrained to believe that that's how I need to show up in order to seem powerful, in order to seem as if I'm on even footing, then I felt like I had to model myself like someone else that I don't even relate to. Those types of beliefs and stereotypes for success are extremely, extremely powerful. It can completely change how we show up from day to day. And we also have to battle the negative side. So it's not just the fact that we're thinking about how we can push back against these stereotypes for who should be successful. We also need to battle the stereotypes for who's not. Because most often, someone will look at you as a woman, especially a woman of color in consulting, and think automatically that you are not successful. You're not as good as, and we do it to ourselves. Even as other women in consulting, how often have you leaned more so to a male guru that seems to spout off the recent literature of the day, and you trust in them more than you trust in maybe your female colleague? We have to begin to think about these social stereotypes and the impact of these things on a much deeper level. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, that we can find those moments where we're allowing ourselves to be guided, driven, and directed by some of these beliefs that are just not true. They truly are stereotypes. There was nothing about the pantsuit that made me seem more professional, because at the end of the day, whatever beliefs that anybody had at that conference table when I walked in the room, whatever beliefs that they had at that moment, they still had whether or not I had a pantsuit on. That's the reality. That's the fact. But we find these ways to create kind of our safety net or Band-Aid or a little snuggle bunny that keeps us comfortable, that allows us to move into those areas and spaces where we lack confidence typically, and then show up more boldly. So that's one of the things that we have to think about. We have to battle the societal stereotypes and biases, and those are real, and those eat away at your confidence. And so you have to push back against those things. One of the other biggest challenges is imposter syndrome. It's just a mere fact that we often feel ourselves like we don't deserve to be there. When you just look at the number of women who are part of the C-suite at any major organization, I always like to go back to the McKinsey study that I think was done in 2022. They do it each year, but I think the last one reported was in 2022. I don't think that 2023 has been released as of yet. But when we look at that study, you can see that just as a woman, if you compare yourself to men, women only make up less than 25% of the C-suite. And when you think about the impact of women of color, we represent less than 5%. I think the studies say 4%. So this is such a small fraction of representation at the highest level that it's hard for us to conceive that we should be there because we're such a minority. Those types of images and those statistics are what can keep us behind, can keep us weighed down and anchored to the place that we are, because we have to look and see beyond that and be confident in what we know and feel deserving in order for us to show up at our highest level to make the greatest impact so that we can drive the change that we want to see. But if we don't have the confidence, then it's going to be hard, extremely hard, nearly impossible to drive those types of changes. So one of the things that we have to begin to do is push back on this whole notion of being an imposter. Imposter syndrome tends to signal that somehow you are trying to fool people, that this is not what you're truly qualified for, and therefore, for someone to follow you or to believe that you have this talent is them being misled or being foolish. We know that's not the case. You know that's not the case. You know what you know, and you know that you can drive results. So if we understand and know our strength and our power in the knowledge that we hold, then imposter syndrome is something that we don't have to buy into. It does not have to be our reality. When we're trying to unleash our confidence, these are all of the things that begin to hold us back. But then also, I do want to point out that sometimes the lack of confidence truly does result from the fact that we are not as knowledgeable as we would like to be in a particular area. When we have uncertainty around information and what a solution may be, that's where our confidence can be eroded, because we don't have the knowledge to call ourselves an expert or to provide the best answer or the best solution. But I want you to know that that's okay. No one knows everything. No one knows everything. And so having these moments where you may not necessarily know an answer or may not have the best experience or knowledge in a particular area doesn't mean that your confidence needs to take a nosedive. It just solely signals that that's where, if you desire, you need to beef up some of your learning. And this is one of the important reasons why I often push clients to remain in their zone of expertise when they're building out their services and their offers, because that's where you're going to have the greatest confidence. And whenever we leave things open and we're just building offers and structuring proposals as needed for any client that comes along, that's where we get ourselves into trouble, where we may feel less confident working in that space, because often the scope will creep beyond where we have an expert insight into. It'll creep beyond that point. And then we get into this territory where we're truly unfamiliar with the information. And many times, instead of us owning up to that fact and just being able to say, this is outside of my scope, I don't feel comfortable giving you advanced advice in this area. I can provide some insight, but I do want to refer you to Joan or Diana down the road. We try and solve the problem. We begin to study and we're trying to learn on the fly and we're trying to piece everything together, because this is where the ego kicks in. We don't want to be wrong. So because we don't want to be wrong, we try to create this answer solution so that we can seem as if we're all knowing. This is how like the ego really gets to you. So we can seem like we're all knowing. And then when we give our answer or the response and it fuels more questions and more inquiry, you become less and less confident in being able to deliver. And in turn, if that shows, your client is going to be less and less confident in you. So it's just this chain reaction that occurs. And the thing is, in order to stop that from happening, we have to just recognize that there are some scenarios where our expertise may be limited. And that's normal. That's okay. It's just a moment in time where we need to put up a boundary, limit our scope, and be able to speak to what we are truly knowledgeable in and of. And that's how you maintain your level of confidence without allowing this opportunity for it to erode away. So it's kind of like building a wall, preventing your confidence from being dismantled and destroyed. So those are some ways that we struggle with confidence. And that can take us to this point where we do have less and less confidence as we're moving from day to day in our business. But what I want us to also focus on is not just the lack of confidence that can occur, but I want us to also talk about how we can actually bolster our confidence and unleash it for new potential. So there's a famous quote that says, 2 things remain irretrievable. That's time and a first impression. So look, when you are presenting your services to a client and you're ready to win that big lucrative contract, you want to put your best foot forward. And what better way to do that than brand collateral that showcases your high quality services in a way that stands out from the crowd. So if you're looking for a way to showcase your services, I want to offer you what I use and what I know has worked for me over time. And that's my offer magazine template. This is literally a Canva template that all you have to do is drop in your pictures, your logos, all of your information, and then allow someone to see firsthand the level of quality that you present when you touch any project that you are working with. To download, click the link in the description and make it yours today. I promise it will be putting your best foot forward. So nurturing and building confidence actually requires intentional action. This is something that we have to do intentionally. It's not going to just happen, and it has to be done within a supportive environment. That's where we come in, especially as colleagues and other women in consulting. We have to begin to support and empower one another so that we can create this environment that is nurturing and gives birth to greater confidence among women in the field. One of the first ways that we can do that is through mentorship or maybe even sponsorship. So there was a Harvard Business Review article that emphasized the importance of mentorship in providing guidance, support, and just really a sounding board for women as they navigate their careers. And we think about this in the corporate space. We see this often when we see programs that are geared toward women in leadership and fostering the growth of women having more executive presence. Having access to people who walked that road before and being able to speak with them about their challenges and their experiences, in particular as women in the industry and women of color, that is invaluable because their walk hasn't been the traditional walk. Their walk is not, as I always like to point out, not part of a book that we most commonly see marketed for consultants. Being able to get that guidance and have someone who's there to sponsor or advocate for you, even if you're in the entrepreneurial space, can be huge. It can be huge. Not only does it provide you this additional insight, but it can actually boost your confidence as well, because as you see the successes that they have and what they're able to accomplish, it allows you to have that similar belief for yourself. Because now it's something that you see is possible. And not only do you see it as being possible, but you're experiencing what it took for that person to get there. You know it to be a reality. It appears to be more tangible to you. So one of the first things that we can do, how can we show up differently? We can show up by starting to share our experience with others in some kind of way, helping other women navigate this space. Now, in addition, we talked about these stereotypes and how many of the stereotypes and biases that exist are because we don't see others in that space. So the more that we can show up more boldly and be visible, the more that we're going to help to channel and build the confidence of other women in the field. So that means instead of always taking the seat at the back and doing all the behind the scenes work, I'm like that too. I don't necessarily have to have the limelight. I don't need to be out in front. I am okay just getting the work done because that's what matters to me most. But sometimes, just sometimes, you're meant to be on that stage. You're meant to be the one getting that award. You're meant to be the picture in that article. You're meant to have that because you're being there. And someone else being able to see you achieve that changes their perception of what the industry looks like. We begin to dismantle some of these stereotypes and some of these biases because we're showing up and showing another viewpoint. We're showing another perspective. We're showing another option. We're showing something else that has always been true, but that we know to be true. That's one of the reasons why I named the podcast what I did, Black Girls Consult 2, TOO, because I wanted to show that as a Black female in the consulting industry, we do exist. We're here too. And that's all sometimes that's necessary for others to feel as if they can also accomplish these larger dreams or goals. So when we're doing this work and we're simply being more visible in the things that we are doing day to day, we are beginning to shape the way that someone else perceives the industry. Not just for ourselves as women and women of color in consulting, but even for men in consulting. Anyone that looks upon the field, they will see someone else in the spotlight. So that's another reason, if you've been holding back, try not to be visible, or you may feel uncomfortable getting on camera, or they don't need to write about me. I'm okay. I don't need that recognition. Listen, you better get it. Take it all in, smile, make it a beautiful picture, because we need to see you up there. In order to see a change, we need to be able to visualize that it's occurring, not just believe and have faith that somehow it's happening in the background somewhere. This is your time to be more visible. And then we have to address the fact that there may still be this lack of knowledge or skill that may exist. And now, if this occurs in an area that is central to your practice and how you're serving others, or maybe something that you just honestly desire to have greater knowledge around, then this is a time and the perfect opportunity for you to begin to develop those skills and that expertise. First of all, when you're going into consulting, because of the nature of the field and the fact that you want to remain on the cutting edge and be innovative and speak to the trends and the changes in your industry today, then you are going to have to be a continual learner. We never stop learning. We never stop growing and evolving and building our knowledge. But then there's some times where we need to do a little bit of patchwork, where there are some deficits that exist. We all have them. And so when we emphasize and focus on investing on not just our continuous learning, but then also filling the gaps where they exist, that's only going to make you stronger in practice. It's only going to make you create and generate better and better results. And all of those things combined are going to catapult your confidence. That's one of the things that's key, is you being able to continually learn, continually develop and acquire new skills and acquire new knowledge. Those things are going to help better equip you to take on anything that comes your way. It's just going to make you better. It's going to make you a better consultant. It's going to make you a more knowledgeable expert. And it is going to boost your confidence. And then the last thing is that in addition to us just changing the face of the industry and providing more representation and visibility and being able to booster in our skills and grow in that capacity, The one thing that is also going to be extremely helpful is continuing to build support systems. Listen, confidence requires you to sometimes hear you did a good job. Let's just be real. Sometimes you just need to hear, that was great. You did an awesome job. Your speech was amazing. Sometimes you just need to hear those things. And that's why having a supportive network is so important. You need your own cheerleading squad. And look, if you don't have one, you tune back into this podcast. I'll be your cheerleading squad. You need your cheerleading squad. You need someone that is going to verbally acknowledge the fact that you are making a meaningful contribution through your expertise and your knowledge. Those are the things that are going to help uplift you and to give you more confidence, not just to hold inside, but to unleash that confidence into the world where it deserves to be so that you can show up more boldly. I think about a certain president that we had a while back that he did a debate, and I thought it was hilarious because he brought his whole little cheering squad with him. You could tell because on the other side, there was kind of like the standard routine decorum. And then on one side, it was all about yay, rah, rah, rah to each and everything that he said, no matter how ridiculous or crazy it was. He brought his own cheering squad. And why that's important is because if you were watching the show, if you're watching the debate, the one thing it made you feel is that if you didn't realize that this person had brought their own cheering squad, which hopefully most people knew, if you didn't realize that, you would begin to think, wow, that person really has it going on. That person is super brilliant and intelligent. Oh my gosh, that person is well respected and acknowledged as an authority or a thought leader. You're going to go all in on the person getting all these cheers and all this recognition and has all this hype, right? There's something to be said for that. Not only does it impact the person that's viewing, the person who is actually giving the performance or the speech or whatever it may be, they are emboldened. They feel more and more powerful because they can feel the support that's there. That's what we need to create. That's what we have to build for one another. And what you'll find is that when we go through the process of focusing on dismantling those things that have stood in the way between us and acknowledging our real power and our confidence and begin to support and build up those things that help to bolster our confidence, it will change the game. It'll change the game. And the one thing I always like to remind us of is that in all of these examples, none of them were able to do it alone. It takes a village. It takes all of us as a community supporting one another and helping each other build something that is amazing and great. So I hope that this episode has been helpful. I hope that it motivates and empowers you to go out and be more visible and more supportive of others in your industry and in your space so that we can unleash confidence into this consulting landscape that is going to just rock it and change it forever. But then also, most importantly for you, having that added level of confidence will take you to new levels. All right, guys, I wish you the best this week. I hope that you have an amazing one. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you leave your review on Apple Podcasts or your rating on Spotify. Reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I always love when you do. I'm so serious about that. I really do love it. And I can't wait to talk to you again soon. All right, take care. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, take care.